and welcome to today's SHIP live discussion here on LinkedIn and also on YouTube, because why the heck not? Today I am joined with the wonderful Anne Irene Ryan, and we are going to talk about one of the most important ships, fellowship. Anne seems to be a tiny bit frozen, of course, as we're coming on,
and if I look on LinkedIn, I'm watching and I'm just a black screen. Yeah. I don't even think my image is showing up, which is so interesting. And I'm going to try to figure it out.
I do. I see it as a black screen too. So today we're talking about fellowship, and of course, and we're going to geek out together on Lord of the Rings a little bit, right? But
we are.
Why is this such an important topic for people tuning in today? Like, why do you feel that this is something we absolutely need to talk about as women who are professionals, and especially in the world of tech?
Well, we were actually talking about this earlier when we weren't trying to get my camera to work properly. And we were both saying that if you don't have you're a community around you and a community to support you, you can feel really alone. And I've personally felt a little lost sometimes.
Yeah. No, the same for sure. And I think it's one of those things too, where we have different groups of people in our lives, right? We have like our immediate family. We have our support group, like hopefully our parents sometimes, right? And maybe siblings. And then we have work friends, but that can feel complicated for women. And especially like you and I own our own businesses. So how do you even find the work friends you need who will understand what you're saying without you having to explain everything and then feeling exhausting?
I'm so sorry, Kristen. I was busy trying to get my camera to work. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, like why do you think it's important that we how do we build that extra group where it's like people that are not our family, people that, they understand what we're talking about when we're saying like ROI, or when we're talking about how a performance evaluation and all that stuff, how do we form that core business friend group so that we can have the fellowship we need without getting super exhausted?
Okay, I have an answer to this. I've been thinking about this a lot because I feel like in school, like in grammar school, high school, even college, it's so easy to meet people and make friends. And you're in close quarters with people all the time. You're doing all the same things with people all the time. But particularly, I started my business during COVID. So not only was I starting a business, but I was by myself in my apartment starting a business. And the thing that I found was I started going to networking events, and it took a long time. It took a long time to sort of find the right groups and the groups that I liked, and sometimes I would always say I go to something at least twice, because the people change in and out. So I'd always try out things at least twice. Right. And then if I kept going, then I would see the same people. We get to know each other. We might have a one-on-one Zoom call, see if we, got along, if we could help each other, support each other. And then it's sort of gone from there. But I do think, and I've been in business 2.5 years. It's taken me a long time to find people you can commiserate with and who you can, you can support each other.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so I kind of want to equate this to my grief journey, which was my father-in-law passed away suddenly as the result of a skiing accident. And it was really exhausting. Oh, Christine is here.
Oh, fantastic.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Christine.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
You're joining us. We're talking about how we found our people and why it's important.
Amazing.
So I was just talking about how for me, in my grief journey, one of the things that really felt good was meeting someone who's lost someone who's really close to them. I was saying my father-in-law passed away suddenly as the result of a skiing accident. And when I would meet other people who knew what it was like to lose someone that close to you, it felt like so much less exhausting than trying to explain what that grief feels like to someone who doesn't necessarily have the same point of reference, even the language, right? So it's not that people who haven't experienced that can't empathize, but there's just a level of understanding they don't feel. And I found that to be true with like being a career minded woman as well, to where I have friends that they're not, the whole business isn't built on them, right?
Yeah.
They're working, or they don't have like a high performance job, or they don't understand like gender issues in the workplace because they're not at a place where that's an issue for them. So finding people who understand that without me having to explain so much or feeling the need
Yes.
to explain, to have that understanding, has been so pivotal in my life. What do you think, Christine? Like, how did you go out and find the right people?
Yeah, it's not simple, and I completely agree. I felt the same way actually through pregnancy, where it was when I met other people who had experienced or were going through pregnancy, and some of the touching your belly were like so weird. It's a
don't do that.
shorthand. Don't do that. Generally, just don't touch people
Yeah.
without permission or consent. So there are these things that a lot of people experience, but I think sometimes, especially female entrepreneurship, isn't as common yet as like across the board. And I loved what you said about, it lands all on you. And for me, when I talk about something controversial, I feel a lot of reputational risk, like personal reputational risk. And that is not simple. And it's not something that other people necessarily or it's not even something I would necessarily want to share with other people because they didn't make the same choices. So, they don't have to resonate. I don't know. So but when you meet women like yourselves or find groups where they've made that same decision, it's a shorthand to then other conversations. You don't have to walk through that conversation to get there and label all the isms and things. You can just start chatting, and you can just start problem solving, and you can start commiserating, and you can start, like grieving, because like some of our dreams die, and they can be very hurtful. So, and when you've been through that and you've seen the process, it's really, really good. And so this one I found through Innovation Women, which was amazing. And then it was resonating with all women who wanted similar things. But another place I found really good for me was Startup Weekend. So a hackathon. That's a really easy test. If startups might be a good place for you to go, because I kind of showed up, and it was the first time in my life. I've been in engineering and then banking. And it was the first time in my life that I was like, my people. I didn't feel odd. I didn't feel weird. I was like, you're cool. You're cool. You're cool. And I felt my home. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a sign. Like, it never intended it to be a sign. I just went because I want to experience it. But these are little tests you can do if things aren't working, and you, without quitting your job and doing other things, that you can find your people. So.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Anne was saying that she started going to networking events, and she made a rule that she would go twice, because one time you don't know, because it's different people rotating in and out. And I've sort of had the same rule where I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it like 2 or 3 or 4 chances to see if I meet anyone. And I have met some of my closest business friends through this random networking group that suddenly the guy turned off because he was mad no one was buying his program. But I built amazing relationships in there that I still am maintaining to this day. And if I'm having one of those days where I'm just like, I feel like quitting, like it used to be, I would just text my husband, I feel like quitting. And he's so good. He's so supportive, but he doesn't like fully understand all the things that I go through every day. As hard as he tries, I just don't think he can. He doesn't have time. Like, he can't just sit with me and understand all of these complicated issues that I'm experiencing. But if I text my friend Emma Tagallo, she builds these mega corporations. And so every single problem I have, she knows what it's like because she works through it with people day to day. And she also will just tell me that she loves me and that I'm doing great and that I'm a good friend. And that helps so much.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I love that your husband's such a strong champion, but I also know that, it's making its round on LinkedIn, but it's an Olympic athlete, and she's talking about how her coach framed it in thirds, how life should feel. A third of the time you should feel great. A third of the time you should feel kind of neutral. A third time you're going to feel really shitty. And that means you're pretty much there. And I think that relates. I don't know if you guys relate to it, but I was like, oh, but so like if a third of the time I'm texting, I have a male partner too, but like if I'm texting my husband and I'm like, like eventually it's going to drag him down, and there's so it's wonderful. He's a huge champion of mine as well. So it's great. We found good partners. That's not always the case, that's another thing for women founders or any founder, right? The partner has to
Well, actually it's not just, so there's like this thing I didn't realize was a thing, but for entrepreneurs specifically, their partners have to be extremely resilient because I guess being with us is very stressful over time. Like I've talked to so many entrepreneur friends that their spouse leaves them and then they end up marrying another entrepreneur and they both have their separate businesses because it's the only person who will like understand and put up with the like high highs and low lows.
Yeah.
And that's something we did want to talk about today. Like how do you interact with your family when they're not part of that fellowship? And how do you instead supplement those fellowship relationships that you have into those, like I feel like we have levels of relationship, right? And our family usually goes pretty high for better or for worse, honestly, right? But it's one of those things where how do we rearrange those relationships a little bit so that we're getting the support we need and we're having actual fellowship?
So one of the things I think, I'm going to backtrack just a little because something you said made me think about something. One of the ways that I try to pay my family back for joining me in the risk of a startup, because it's not financially successful yet. So there's an opportunity cost there. Is I make sure I try very hard to make sure I'm sharing all the highs with them so they can come through in the story and they can share in that experience of what it's like to have these breakthroughs, even if they are small, because that is the joy that it's bringing me. And that's something positive I can give back in what is sometimes not a very positive journey. But I think that if I solely had my husband as my only source of support and didn't have this fellowship with other women, it would be probably damaging to my relationship. And so then I would lose out on the opportunity to speak with all these amazing women who can relate and help me problem solve, like we've done in practice here. But also I think it helps preserve that relationship with my partner, my life partner, so that he can be supportive of me without needing to be my sole source of business strategy, emotional support, trauma coach, So, and it's not easy to make relationships with fellow women. Business owners are really busy. So it is important to carve out time. And I think follow what feels good in this case. Like I love this sort of rules to make sure you're not giving up too easily. But also if you're in a relationship where it feels like too much work, it's probably not a good use of your time. So follow what feels easily, because this should be an organic thing. That doesn't mean it can't come with challenge, right? Like I want people who push back and constructively are thoughtful or, can give, one of the things I love about this group is you're incredible at marketing, at persuasive conversation, all these skills that I don't have. And I can learn from that and I can see it. And I can also see when my stuff is like falls a bit short. So I like that constructive growth and that like seeing what aren't my skill sets, but also like this could be better. Like not criticism. Like, I don't mean it. I don't want it to couch that way. It's not quite that, but you have to get pushed, right? Like you're alone. You don't have sounding board. So that, it's very beneficial. Find relationships that do that for you, that aren't just yes people, but help you grow. And there's a bit of ease there, because if it's too hard, I don't know.
Then it's not supportive, right? It's like tearing you down instead of building you up. I think that's one of the struggles that we face, like when it comes to our family members, is a lot of them are afraid for us that we'll fail.
Yes.
Like, that's been my experience, that they come with their scarcity mindset and their like mothering and fathering attitudes, right? And I understand because I'm a mom. Yeah. But they're like, my first like instinct is to protect, which means don't do this at all.
Yeah.
Like, just take a step back, go get a job. Like, go get a normal job where you're getting paid $15 an hour and you feel like you're dying on the inside. Which that's advice that I was given personally.
No,
Yeah.
I think so. I'm 45 and I lived through, I feel like Gen X the entire time. We're just like, you should be happy you have a job. You should be happy you have a job. Do you see what's going on around there? You should be happy you have a job. And we're just like, stab me with the vaccine, right? I'll take whatever I get. Thankful to have whatever I have.
Yeah.
It's a gross generalization, I know, but yeah, that is advice people give us a lot. And especially in the early days when you're building and putting more money in that's coming out, it's sound advice. Like, it's actually, on paper, it's smart. It's just on paper on a longer time frame or from an emotional, like you said, dying on the inside. So true. It's not worth it, right? Like, it's just not worth it. So, and I can attest to how talented you both are. So I'm really glad that you put your shingle out, because if anybody has the opportunity to work with either of you, I highly recommend taking them up on it. So.
The same for you. Yeah. And when you were talking about how you can do better, I always feel like you're teaching us how to have better mindset about money. And that's one of the things we want to get into. But before we do that, Anne, what are you thinking? What are you feeling now that you're not frozen?
Yes, apparently the camera has fixed, so we're good. Well, I have a couple of things, because I'm slightly have a different scenario than you both. I don't have a partner. I'm doing this all on my own. And I have to actually credit other female entrepreneurs for the reason why I'm here today. Because I took some time off. Yeah, it's totally true. Like, I took some time off to kind of take some business classes, because I'd never actually thought about opening my own business and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I went to all these networking events. And whenever I would talk about what I wanted to do, people would say your face would light up and you would get so excited. And then you would tell us that you don't have a business yet. Like, you don't have an entity. You haven't, started working with clients. And it was the women who would be like, you need to do this. And I remember this, I took this one workshop and it was this business coach who ran it. And I asked a question at the end and I said, how do you launch? Like, I'm afraid I'm going to like mess up my launch. Do you know, like, I've been thinking about it for so long. I don't really know what to do. Like, I was very nervous about launching. And she looked dead in the camera. And I remember this lady so well. She goes, look at me. You're going to launch wrong, but I want you to do it anyway, with like a slight New York accent. And I loved her. And I realized, like, okay, it was like an epiphany moment for me when I was like, I'm going to make so many mistakes, and that is okay.
Yeah. Because
I'm going to launch wrong. I'm going to figure out what I did wrong, and then I'm going to fix it. Do you know, like, and so that's my mindset, where it's like, yes, opening up your own business is terrifying. It is probably the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life. It is absolutely terrifying, but it is also the most fun I've ever had. And I've also met the most amazing people doing it, like you both. Do you know what I mean? And all of the SHIP panel and everyone in Innovation Women. Do you know? But it's also like, this has been a journey, right? This is 2.5 years. And I finally sort of feel like I've got the hang of it. Maybe that might change in a month. I don't know. But especially for single ladies, do you know, like, I don't have a partner to talk to about my day or anything. Yeah. So I do rely on my friendships and I rely on my family, you know, to for that support, and as ways where I can also give support as well. But I do know that if I ever do have a partner, he's got to understand what I'm doing.
Right. That's so good for you that you know that ahead of time. I feel like I didn't know that I was going to be an entrepreneur. Oh, I got married as like a baby. I was 21. But my husband had no idea we were going to go on this adventure, and that makes a big difference. Like, I feel like if I was picking a partner now, you know, I wouldn't have picked who he was back then. And he said the same thing about me, because we basically grew up together. But it's so good that you're coming from the perspective of, I know what I want. I know what kind of relationships I want. And I need someone who can be on the ship with me.
I love it. Who can cruise with you.
Amazing. Did you get the same advice as Kristen from your family, like that this was a bad idea? Or were they more supportive?
They were supportive, but cautious.
Because Kristen and I have very similar family.
Yeah, my family is very, very supportive, but I think also I got advice from another female entrepreneur once, and she goes, "Don't talk about your business with your family." And I said, "Why?" Well, because I was like, "Why not?" And her answer was like, "Because they want to keep you safe, and you want to take a lot of risk."
Yeah, that's
It's
amazing.
true. And so you need those people around you that will support you in taking that risk and say, well done when it blows up in your face because you tried, instead of saying, I told you not to do that.
Yeah, drive the
Right?
ship into the middle of the ocean, find out what's on the other side of the world, right?
Yeah.
I
So
love
I-
the sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
I love the like you're gonna launch wrong. I got
Yeah.
similar advice. So if from a woman, so if anybody needs to hear this, I was told if you're not embarrassed by what you put out in the world, you waited too long.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. All
I'm
right,
gonna remember that.
Let's talk a little bit about how money fits into this fellowship, right? Because as women, are we taught that we should talk about money, like in general?
No, it is not polite. I purposely talk about how much money I made in my 20s, and I know it sounds like bragging, but it's also the investment of that money that gives me the capability, to the opportunity and the option to do what I'm doing today. And it sounds gauche, right? Like there's this people run away from me at parties these days. I'm not fun, but
I think you're fun.
Same.
Yay. But I want to talk about money, and I want to talk about things that are uncomfortable, because it's not nice to talk about money, and women are supposed to be nice and pretty, not trying to change the world, not trying to make money, not trying to figure out how to improve their processes and stuff like that. So I think it's getting more common, but I don't know. I want to talk about money all the time. So I don't know why we're not taught to talk about money more.
Well, I feel like growing up, I was really taught that I should communicate to other people when I got a good deal, when I saved money.
Oh, yes, yes.
Right? Like, feel like, oh, I got this on sale. Like, someone would compliment my thing. I'd be like, I got it for $7. And like later on in my adult life, I realized like they don't care if you got it for $7. Just take the compliment and move on with your life. And they don't want to know how many coupons you clipped. Like, that's not what people are about. It's fine that you're thrifty, but also stop buying things that you don't want just because they're on sale.
Yes. Yes. Great advice. One of the things I really wish we talked more about is it's okay to get joy from the money that you spend. And in fact, that's kind of the secret to being satisfied and having enough, is to figure yourself out. And it's going to change over time. But like, what are you joyful when it comes to spending money on? Spend your money there. Secret solved. Then you're going to be happy, and you're allowed to spend your money on yourself. And it can be quote unquote frivolous, because a lot of our spending is seen as frivolous, and a lot of men's spending is seen as discerning when it's they call it discretionary spending. Meaning like it's like fun money. But so women spend their fun money on frivolity, men spend their, like, I don't know, I think I might have pointed this last time, but this is like my husband's ridiculously expensive stereo system. Like, nobody judged him for that. But every time I got my nails done when I was younger, people were like, "Aw." And I don't do it anymore because I'm mum. But
because it doesn't bring you joy, right? That's why you stop.
Also doesn't bring me joy. Also, yeah, true. That's a good bringing it back. Very true. But it's just interesting the way society talks to us, right? And we're told to give our money away. That's another thing we're allowed to do with money. We're allowed to be philanthropic. Do you guys?
Right.
Yeah, comes back to speaking, right? Women are often asked to speak for free. Women and minorities.
I'm
nodding along.
Yeah,
I've
we're all feeling it
with people sometimes when I create like my male alter ego. His name is Andrew.
Amazing.
And I'm like, if you were talking to Andrew, would you ask Andrew to come and speak for free? Or when you're talking to Anne, would you ask Anne to come and speak for free? And I love doing volunteer work. I do. Yeah. I want to give back. But also the bottom line is I'm running a business. And in order to keep the lights on in the business, right? And for me to have the time to create really great workshops and put effort into, like doing what I do really well. Yeah. You need to get paid.
Yeah.
Right. Like, our time and our experience is valuable, and that's why Oh, sorry, keep going.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's why I want to pay other entrepreneurs what they're worth. Like when I hire people, I'm like, what's your rate? I'm like, that's the rate I'll pay.
Yeah.
Because I want people to pay my rate.
Exactly. Well, and like people are like, I'm not a charity. Actually, charities also need money to run, right? Like realistically. So that kind of leads us, since we're talking about speaking, into an exciting announcement we have. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Christine, for jumping on and talking about the ship. We didn't make any Lord of the Rings references. I feel like we lied a little bit about that. But let's just say Frodo would not have been able to carry the ring without Sam. Hopefully that's not a big spoiler for people. But we have an exciting announcement where one of our panels from SHIP has been accepted to the Women in Tech Global Conference for 2023. It's going to be our panel that's on expanding opportunities in tech through the empowerment of women, because more women equals better results. I am 100% sure of that. Christine has the studies to back that up also, as far as money. And so thank you for everyone who has been supporting us. We're going to be putting out a post later today where you can actually go vote for our panel so that we get a better priority spot, because we just love supporting you. You love supporting us. It's a fellowship that we have together. So that's it for today. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. You are amazing. And Malia is dropping the link for the form in the chat. If you want replays of these events, if you want to nominate a speaker, including yourself, we will be collecting all of that. Anne just dropped it in there. Thank you, Anne. So that is that little bit.ly. I love how you made that because you're so on top of things. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you on the forum. We'll see you next week. You can already go RSVP for our event next Thursday, which is going to be about mentorship with Dr. Farzana and Kirsten Rourke from Rourke Training. It's going to be amazing. See you all soon.
Bye, everyone.